Welcome to Werezilla's Retrospective. I'm your host, Werezilla. And welcome back to Uncharted Month. And now that we've had a first game to iron out the kinks and really decide where we're going from here, it's time to create a more polished game. At least I'm pretty sure that's what the developers were thinking.
Looking back at the release of Uncharted 2, I almost wasn't interested in getting it. I felt the first game was just okay and didn't seem like it was worth having a sequel. Lo and behold, my friends and I would regularly play the second game over and over again, because we were having a lot of fun. I wasn't exaggerating when I said this one is more polished, has better gameplay, better story, more exciting set pieces, more variety in the locations.
But that's strictly if that's your kind of thing. It's still linear, and if that's a hindrance to you, then nothing I say will change your opinion about this game. But I'm not here to change your opinion. I'm just here to tell you what I think. Let us begin.
We open with Nate injured thanks to a bullet in his side, and he's in a crashed train. A train that's hanging off the side of a cliff, in a snowy mountain region. As tutorials go, this certainly catches the player's attention. We flash back to a few months prior, ironically on a warm beach, where Nate runs into two old associates, Flynn and Chloe, who are played respectively by Steve Valentine and Claudia Black, Alistair and Morrigan from Dragon Age Origins. Just in case you couldn't get enough of the Dragon Age actors last time, here's two more. Of course, Alistair wouldn't exactly approve of Flynn's plan to break into a Turkish museum to get an ancient oil lamp. Morrigan would probably be okay with it, though. So our three heroes plans to get the lamp and follow the clues left behind by yet another real-life explorer, Marco Polo, to find his missing ships filled with gold. They're screwing over the guy who originally hired Flynn, of course, and apparently Nate and Chloe are possibly screwing with Flynn since they were apparently already in contact with each other before their meeting on the beach, as well as just screwing in general. Whether or not Flynn was aware of this is unclear, but nevertheless, after they sneak their way into the museum and discover the oil lamp contains a map leading to Marco Polo's lost fleet, but also realizing his cargo includes the legendary Chintamani stone, Flynn pulls a gun on Nate and trips the alarm in hopes of getting him caught. And the game really had me going. I thought I was going to get away the first time around. Incidentally, this segment introduces the stealth to the franchise, which I'm glad is here, but I have a few gripes with it that'll be more important later. Nate then spends a few months in prison where he goes a little stir-crazy.
You overlooked one little detail, didn't you, partner? What? Face it, genius, you've been played. Oh, really?
Well now, if this treasure hunter thing doesn't work out, Nate can always try getting into voice acting. Sully bails him out of using the money they got at the end of the last game, oh, so that did have a purpose after all, as well as convince Nate to trust Chloe since she apparently had no part in Flynn's betrayal. If nothing else, she's able to help Nate and Sully infiltrate the camp being operated out of by Flynn and his employer, a brutal warlord known as Lazarevich. Well, how bad could he be?
You would betray me for this?
No, Zoran, I can't explain.
No need. I am surrounded by traitors and fools!
He's been on screen for 5 seconds, and already he's more memorable than the last game's villain. Nate goes through Lazarevich's notes learning the Chintamani stone was never on Marco Polo's ships, indicating it's still in the lost city of Shambhala.
Don't worry, it really is a lost city this time and not a sarcophagus. Hey, I didn't say anything about it not being cursed.
Nate, Sully, and Chloe head up the nearby mountain and surely enough come across the remains of Marco Polo's company.
Christ almighty.
Just kidding.
Nate, you're gonna give me a goddamn heart attack.
Considering what happened in the last game, a skeleton holding onto its loot is not out of the realm of possibility. They find a map that points them in the direction of a temple-filled city in Nepal, as well as a golden dagger. A dagger we got a glimpse of in the train wreckage at the beginning of the game. Unfortunately for our heroes, Flynn gets a hold of the map, so he also knows where to go next. By the time Nate arrives in Nepal, Lazarevich has already started tearing the city apart. Oh, and Sully decides to tap out this time because...
I'm getting too old for this bullshit.
I'm guessing Sully's actor wasn't available for the entire production of the game. because I'm not convinced this is enough to get him to back out, not in light of what happens in the next two games. Nate makes his way through the city, eventually meeting back up with Chloe. Fine by me, I'm just glad we don't have to spend too much time by ourselves like we did in the last game, despite this one bit where Chloe gets stuck in an elevator.
Great. Power's out and the girl's trapped. I swear to God, if there's a zombie around the next corner.
I see what you did there, planting the seeds for later games. Nate and Chloe continue through Lazarevich's men, taking on a helicopter along the way. Pretty fun stuff. There's also a segment where the helicopter shoots at a building you are currently in, causing it to collapse, and the enemies seem more focused on killing Nate than the fact that they are, in a collapsed building. And who should they run into afterwards but Elena? Here I was thinking she wasn't going to be in this game. When Nate and Chloe met in the hotel room earlier in the game, I got the impression that the franchise was going to have a different girl each game, again emulating action movies. So seeing Elena again, who is also training Lazarevich, was genuinely surprising. Further surprising is that there's no love triangle between Nate, Elena, and Chloe. Elena makes a joke about being last year's model, and Chloe laughs at Nate's expense, but that's about it.
It would have been real easy to fall into this cliche, but I am really glad they didn't. As much as Uncharted embraces some cliches, it's always nice to see them subvert others.
Elena and her cameramen are forced to stick with Nate and Chloe, despite her protests, and come across the right temple to find Marco Polo's trail. And for some reason, Nate is surprised the dagger functions as a key. I don't know why, because that's the first thing I thought of when I saw it. I guess Nate's never seen an adventure movie before, despite living the lifestyle. I'm a bit confused as to how some of these large contraptions were built before modern-day building equipment, but regardless, Nate and Chloe figure out where to go next, a mountain range in Tibet to find Shambhala. Of course, immediately after this, Lazarevich's men find them, and Elena's cameraman gets shot. Not surprisingly, after trying to get him out of harm's way, our heroes get cornered by Lazarevich, who casually kills the cameraman. Also not surprisingly, he takes the map to Tibet that Nate had traced from the temple and leaves it to his men to kill Nate and Elena instead of doing the job himself, which allows them to escape. And just because Lazarevich is more memorable than the previous game's villains doesn't mean he's not going to act like a Bond villain. Unwilling to leave Chloe and Lazarevich's company, since for a moment it looked like Flynn was onto her, Nate and Elena follow her to a train yard, leading to a lengthy segment where Nate has to traverse a moving train. I'll admit, I'm a sucker for this kind of level in video games, and Uncharted 2 does a really good job at it, going back and forth between the top and interior of the train, and I don't think the environments are looped. If it does, I didn't notice. This eventually climaxes in another battle with a helicopter and eventually a big guy that apparently is immune to gunfire, forcing the player to fight him in a brawl. Yes, a brawl with a big guy is standard for action movies, including Indiana Jones. Of course, I still feel like I should be able to just shoot this guy and end the fight that way for a very simple reason. Chloe, unfortunately, isn't interested in being rescued, and during the heated argument, Flynn shows up and shoots Nate. He bolts back the way he came, but injured and cornered by Lazarevich's men, Nate shoots some conveniently placed explosive barrels to derail the train.
While I could make a joke about how exploding barrels don't really work that way, it's here where I have to mention a sequence that just breaks the game when you try to go off script, as it were.
After catching up with the prologue, Nate runs into some of Lazarevich's men looking around for the dagger. Now, because stealth kills are possible in this game, I assumed I could either stealth kill all these guys and move forward, or alternatively, sneak past them without killing anyone. Do either one of these things, and two random mercenaries will spawn in and insta-kill Nate. See, the game wants this to end in a gunfight, with one of the fallen train cars exploding at the end. It's a simple solution, but the game has decided how it wants to go down, and that alternate solution simply isn't it. It's going to just break. I'm not even sure why there's a fight here, since right afterwards, he collapses from exhaustion, which he did before the fight. Why was this included again? Well, fortunately for Nate, he is found and brought back to health by this guy, Tenzin. He's brought to Tenzin's village that Elena somehow found and meets the only other English speaker in the village, Schaefer. He warns Nate that Lazarevich can't get his hands on the Chintamani stone because he will gain great power from it, which Elena believes but Nate doubts. Wait, what? After what happened with the El Dorado sarcophagus and the golem things, you think he wouldn't doubt the supernatural. Schaefer encourages Nate to follow Tenzin to the location of his own expedition from decades ago in a segment that I really like for character purposes. Nate can't speak Tibetan and Tenzin can't speak English, so these two have to learn to communicate through alternate means. It's a nice touch. Along the way to Schaefer's expedition, they run into fucking bulletproof Yetis! You believe in the supernatural yet, Nate? At the end of this long trek, they come across the remains of Schaefer's expedition.
You know, it occurs to me, Schaefer's name and accent sound German. I wonder if...
Oh, Jesus. They were SS.
Na Gott sei mal so.
Nazis.
Nazi?
Well, of course they were Nazis, because Indiana Jones. Guess it's a good thing Schaefer had a conscience and killed him when he had the chance. In a moment that mirrors the events of the last game, Nate and Tenzin get swarmed by the Yetis and have to fend them off while a platform lowers towards them so they can escape. Thankfully, Tenzin survives this encounter, unlike Eddie. Now, you probably noticed Tenzin's village had conspicuous chest-high walls. You probably looked at them and said, there's going to be a fight here later, isn't there? If you did, then you would be correct, as Lazarevich's men assault the village and kidnap Schaefer. I don't know why they kidnap him, since all they needed was the dagger, but okay. We have several great set pieces involving a tank and later a truck chase. Sure, we had a glorified turret section in the last game, but this one one-ups that by allowing you to jump from truck to truck. Nate and Elena follow Lazarevich to some ancient ruins that the Yetis are also scurrying around and find Schaefer on the brink of death. Gotta say, Nate is pretty broken up about this considering he barely knew Schaefer. Makes me wonder if Schaefer's role in the story, or possibly just this part, was originally written with Sully in mind. Nate gets the dagger back from Chloe and finds the entrance to Shambhala, and is immediately followed by Lazarevich and Flynn. Nate tries to hold one of Lazarevich's men hostage, but Lazarevich just shoots him. And then doesn't pull the trigger when he threatens Elena and Chloe. Again, just like a Bond villain. Nate and Flynn get attacked by the Yetis again, and disappointingly, Lazarevich kills one and realizes they are not Yetis, but rather cursed people wearing costumes. Damn it, I like the Yeti things. The entrance to Shambhala is opened, revealing a clear blue sky. How did nobody notice this city flying over it? I guess that's why they took the train instead of flying there. More of Shambhala's guardians show up, allowing Nate and Elena and Chloe to escape, where again Lazarevich's men seem more focused on killing Nate than the more immediate danger around them. Chloe wants to get out of there, but Nate and Elena convince her to stick around to stop Lazarevich from getting the stone. Remember this. Also, and I can't believe this line actually made it into the game...
Whoa, wait a minute. Don't tell me you're buying into all that supernatural nonsense.
I don't know what to believe anymore.
Okay, well, just in case you missed it, that man is certifiable. He thinks he's fulfilling some sort of prophecy that the stone will somehow make him invincible. Immortal.
We're standing in the middle of Shambhala, and you're questioning what's possible?
Does anyone else get the impression this conversation should have happened before entering the city? Because having it here just makes Chloe look like an idiot. Moving on, it turns out the Chintamani stone is not a stone, but rather sap from the Tree of Life, which was actually foreshadowed earlier when we saw images of trees in past locations. Flynn shows up wounded by Lazarevich and sets off a grenade, killing himself and critically injuring Elena. Surprisingly, it doesn't occur to Nate or Chloe to use the sap to heal her. Seriously, it never comes up. With Elena injured, Nate runs ahead to deal with Lazarevich. He drinks the sap, which makes him stronger. See, now this is how you have a final boss fight in this kind of game. He can't be hurt by gunfire, but there's a reason why, and he has to be standing near exploding tree sap. Lazarevich eventually goes down and says this.
You think I am a monster, but you're no different from me, Drake. How many men have you killed? How many just today? That's it, boy. No compassion, no mercy. Do it! No. You don't have the will.
You just called him a thoughtless killer like you. Some people might agree with you on that, but somehow I don't think a reckless treasure hunter is on par with a warlord. The Guardians beat Lazarevich to death and Nate escapes the crumbling city. But for a moment it actually looks like Elena died, both with her not moving after escaping and Tenzin praying at a statue in his village. But it turns out he was praying for Schaefer and Elena recovered from her injuries. Without the use of a sap apparently. Nate and Chloe break off the relationship since both agree Nate is better off with Elena. Sully makes one last appearance, lamenting the loss of Shambhala.
Something else will come along. Just gotta have faith.
Yeah. That and a quarter will get you 25 cents.
And Nate and Elena watch the sun making a joke about Elena's close call. Well, these two clearly do belong to each other if this is their sense of humor. Uncharted 2 Among Thieves is undeniably a step in the right direction. Going through the game, I had a better handle on the shooting and climbing. The writing is sharper in terms of characterization, even if the plot is more predictable this time around. Puzzle solving still exists, and like in the last game, the answers are already given to the player. This time it's written down in Nate's personal journal, and I have no idea how the answers got there since this is the first time he's looking at these puzzles, so why it's already in his journal is anyone's guess. It's neat that you can flip through all the pages at your leisure, since you can find a picture of Elena and drawings of flowers, which is a nice touch. I joke about how the relationship progresses, but I can kind of see why the game goes with her instead of Chloe. I mean, I like Chloe, but she doesn't strike me as a team player. She's a character that could have been unlikable, but like Morrigan, Claudia Black has the charisma to make it work.
But while the game does a lot of things right with its characters and setting, there were a few things that I didn't notice when I was a kid that I did notice going through the game this time. That I did not approve of.
I have a love-hate relationship with the stealth in this game, because I'm glad it's there, it gives me options, but I found only one time where I could stealth kill every enemy in the section. All other times I'd be spotted and a gunfight would ensue, because this game does have an issue I mentioned regarding set pieces and having a set path that it wants you to take. If I was watching a movie, all of these, even the fight in the snow, would look great. But I'm not watching a movie, I'm playing a game. Once again, Uncharted's greatest asset has the potential to be its own downfall.
Thankfully, it didn't ruin the gaming experience for me. Next up is Uncharted 3, which is more of the same. For better and for worse.
Hey, check it out. Marco.
Really?
Come on.
No.
Marco.
Hello.